Right now, the AI revolution has kicked off a modern-day gold rush. And the new gold? It's data centers. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is piling in. But while the entire world is chasing this boom, there's one billionaire real estate developer, a guy with a crazy track record of being right, who's sounding a huge alarm. Okay, let's get into it. So in one corner, you've got the absolute titans of finance, Blackstone, KKR, Bain Capital. We're talking about the heavyweights, the smartest folks in the room, and they are betting billions on data centers. And then in the other corner, you have Fernando De Leon. He's the founder of the $10 billion Leon Capital Group, and he is very publicly sitting this one out. And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? What in the world does he see that they don't? Why, when all this money is flowing in, is he refusing to touch a single dollar of it? To really get his point of view, we first have to understand the frenzy that he's avoiding. This is the data center gold rush. It's actually pretty simple. Every AI model, every single search query, every new platform, all of it runs on just massive amounts of computing power. And that power has to live somewhere, right? It lives inside these enormous specialized buildings. So as AI explodes, the demand for these data centers has just gone vertical, and investors are practically tripping over each other to get a piece of the action. But listen, this isn't Fernando De Leon's first rodeo, not by a long shot. To understand why his warning carries so much weight, you've got to look at his history. It's a pattern of seeing the crisis way before anyone else does. And his track record, well, it speaks for itself. Back in 2007, a full year before the global financial crisis, he saw the warning signs in subprime mortgages and sold off his holdings. And while everyone else was losing their shirts, from 2008 to 2012, he jumped in and literally built his fortune fixing the very projects that had crashed. And then he did it again. In 2021, he sold billions in real estate right at the top of the market, calling out the euphoria. The guy just knows how to read the room. So what's his secret? This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of it. See, he doesn't just look at the buildings, he looks at who is buying them. When money from inexperienced players starts flooding a market, he sees that as a major red flag that prices are totally disconnected from reality. Which brings us right back to today. He's looking at the data center market, and guess what? He's seeing those exact same distortions. So let's break down the 5 specific red flags he's waving right now. He's identified 5 critical problems in this whole boom, 5 ticking time bombs that he believes pretty much the entire market is just completely ignoring. Let's count them down. Okay, number 1, the price tags are pure speculation. In real estate, you figure out what something's worth by looking at comps, what similar properties sold for. De Leon's pointing out that people are throwing around numbers like $10 billion for a data center, but there's no history of any deal ever closing for more than $4 or $5 billion. They're pricing these things in totally uncharted territory based on a good story, not on proven data. Red flag number 2 is a simple but honestly brilliant question he asks. The biggest tech companies on the planet, the ones who need these data centers more than anyone, are refusing to own them. They're telling developers, no, you build it, you take on the risk. So you have to ask, why would a multi-trillion-dollar company pass on owning the single most critical asset for its future? It's a huge tell. And this might just be the answer. Red flag number 3, the tech is evolving at lightning speed. AI is literally designed to make itself obsolete. The real value isn't the concrete box, it's the chips and the servers inside. And in just a couple of years, all of that could be junk. It makes the building a potential trap, a very, very expensive shell built for technology that doesn't even exist anymore. So you're probably thinking, what about the long-term leases? Aren't those supposed to make this a safe bet? Well, De Leon has an incredible name for them, Swiss cheese leases. He thinks they are just riddled with holes, packed with escape clauses that'll let these tech giants walk away the second the tech gets outdated, leaving the landlords holding the bag. And finally, red flag number 5. This is where it gets personal. A lot of the cash flooding into these super risky deals, it's coming from pension funds. We're talking the retirement savings of teachers, police officers, firefighters. De Leon's biggest concern is that these giant investment firms aren't just gambling with their own money. As he puts it, they're putting other people's money at risk on an unproven asset with a really shaky foundation. So, how did this guy develop such a unique, contrarian view of the world? The answer is, well, it's pretty surprising. It's not from business school. It's from a lesson in biology. You see, De Leon has a degree from Harvard in evolutionary biology, And he applies those principles to business. He sees markets like their ecosystems. He studies the incentives driving behavior, he analyzes the big, established players, and he tries to predict how they'll act. It's this framework that lets him, as he says, see around the corners and spot trouble long before anyone else.
Okay, so by now you might be thinking he's a total pessimist about the market, right? But here's the twist. Despite his stark warning on data centers, he is incredibly bullish, super optimistic about the next decade for commercial real estate as a whole.
His optimism is all based on this massive shift he sees coming down the pipeline. He predicts that the really big funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, you name it, are about to double how much money they put into real estate, going from about 3% of their portfolios today all the way up to 6%. And what does that doubling actually mean in real dollars? It means an extra $4 trillion will be chasing a finite number of properties. That's an unprecedented wave of capital about to hit the market. And this flood of money leads to his final huge prediction. All that cash chasing a limited supply of good properties is going to cause prices for fundamentally sound assets, not the speculative stuff like data centers, to shoot way up. He actually believes the real estate capital markets are going to grow tenfold in the next decade. His strategy is simple: avoid the hype and buy the quality that everyone else will be desperate for tomorrow. So all of this leaves us with one final question to chew on. Is this data center boom really the future, built on a solid foundation of incredible technology? Or is Fernando De Leon right? Is it just the latest, greatest story that investors flush with other people's money desperately, desperately want to believe?